Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The program will begin in 5 minutes. At this time, please move to your seats and help us start on schedule. As a reminder, please silence your electronic devices and leave them on so you can text or email your questions for our guest speakers to the address on the screen, askmetna@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Eric Gladman, Army National Account Manager for the SANS Institute and President of the AFCEA Greater Augusta Chapter.
Hey, thank you, Paul, very much for that. Eric Gladman here, and before we have the General Morrison's keynote, we have a couple chapter awards that we would like to present. So just bear with us for about 2 minutes. We would appreciate it. Turn back to you, Ben or Paul.
Thank you. Please welcome to the stage AFCEA Greater Augusta Chapter's Vice President for Scholarships and Education, Dr. Melissa Johnson, PM for Sendwave Solutions, LLC, and Mrs. Justine McDonald, Senior Cybersecurity Engineer for Taito Athene. And now please welcome Dr. Kimberly Burr, Specialist Jared, who could not be here today, and Senior Airman Caleb Sundstrom on stage for the presentation of the Lieutenant General Douglas Buckholz Scholarships. The Greater Augusta Chapter of AFCEA offers $2,000 scholarships to enlisted service members stationed at Fort Eisenhower who are pursuing a bachelor's or master's degree in a STEM field, science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, at an accredited university. This scholarship was established in 2004 by General Dynamics and AFCEA to honor the late Lieutenant General Douglas Buckholz in recognition of his dedication to encouraging service members to pursue technical education. Lieutenant General Buckholz served as the 27th Chief of Signal for the Army and was the Commanding General of the U.S. Army Signal Center in Fort Eisenhower. We are honored to have the very first recipient of the Lieutenant General Douglas Buckholz Scholarship in 2004 joining us today, Dr. Kimberly Burr. She completed her bachelor's degree in electronics management in 2005, her master's degree in 2006, and PhD in 2018 as a doctorate in philosophy of education, curriculum, and teaching. After receiving the Buckholz Scholarship, Dr. Burr became a very active volunteer with AFCEA, working in membership, scholarships, and vice president for a year. Dr. Burr currently works for the Veterans Health Administration, Office of Finance, Managerial Cost Accounting Office as a Director of Training. Dr. Kimberly Burr will be presenting this year's 2 recipients of the Lieutenant General Douglas Buckholz Scholarship. Specialist Jared Durio could not be here today. We have Senior Airman Caleb Sundstrom, U.S. Air Force 451st Intelligence Squadron, Fort Eisenhower. Senior Airman Sundstrom is pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Cyber Operations from the University of Arizona. In 2020, In 2022, the AFCEA Greater Augusta Chapter established a new Teachers Award in honor of an educator that has had a profound impact on this region. This award, in honor of Dr. Sandra Carraway, is designed to recognize the generational impact Dr. Carraway had on the education system in this region, the students, the teachers, and the community as a whole. Dr. Carraway served her entire adult life as an educator, concluding a 36-year career in education as the Columbia County School Superintendent, where she served from 2013 to 2021. In that capacity, Dr. Carraway provided vision, strategic leadership, and an unwavering commitment to her workforce, her students, and the community she loves to ensure that K-12 education in this region served as a force multiplier and worthy of the Army's investment. At this time, please welcome to the stage the 2024 recipient of the Dr. Sandra Carraway Outstanding Educator Award, Ms. Teresa Walker from Montesano Elementary School. Mrs. Teresa Walker is an experienced elementary school teacher in Richmond County with a career in education that began in 1995. Initially, she taught computer operations to both adults and children. Ms. Walker holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Information Technology and a Master's degree in Cybersecurity. Although education is her second career, it is her true passion. She considers teaching to be one of the most meaningful professions and is dedicated to giving her students her full attention, support, and energy to help them succeed. Throughout her career, she has taught in various locations, including Broward County, Florida, and McDuffie County, Georgia, where she taught at an alternative school. In Richmond County, Ms. Walker taught computer science at both the elementary and middle school levels, focusing on coding and game design. She has a deep love for math, which she shares with her third grade students, fostering their enthusiasm for the subject. Currently, Ms. Walker teaches lower elementary students and is committed to using intervention strategies and technology to enhance their education. She consistently seeks to implement research-based strategies and interactive tools to engage her students. She is proactive in requesting the resources necessary to support her students' learning and is dedicated to their success. Ladies and gentlemen, the AFCEA Greater Augusta 2024 Dr. Sandra Caraway Outstanding CSRA Educator Award is awarded to Ms. Teresa Walker as a top educator in the CSRA who reflects Dr. Caraway's character, ideals, leadership, and unwavering commitment to support and advance STEM-related education opportunities for K-12 students. Please welcome Steve Vogelsang, Chief Technology. Sorry.
Hey, just one quick thing, please. So first of all, I'd like to thank everybody that sponsors our golf tournament. We had a great success yesterday. General Lawrence gave us some guidance to start early, and we're glad we did yesterday. So we kicked it off at 0800, which means we got up at about 3:30 in the morning to get that thing going and set up. And we raised over $20,000 yesterday, so I'd like to thank all the sponsorships that came out for that. We had several sponsors, too many to list, but we really appreciate it. So just to give you an idea of where your funds go, last year here in the CSRA, we did $30,000 worth of STEM scholarships. 15 of those total, 10 went to high school and 5 went to college, and then we got the General Buckholz Award, and we got one of the selectees here, the winner, and the other gentleman couldn't be here. And then we also participate, giving $5,000 for the CSRA Patriot, Cyber Patriot camp that happened this past year, and then the teachers. And I couldn't do it without Dr. Johnson and Miss Justine down there, because they do so much for us in getting the information out to the CSRA. And we gave over $10,000 last year to the local CSRA teachers here. So thank you so much for your participation and supporting the local chapter here, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Please welcome Steve Vogelsang, Chief Technology Officer of Nokia Federal Solutions, to the stage to introduce our next keynote speaker.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am pleased to introduce the TechNet Augusta 2024 afternoon keynote, Transforming the Unified Network at Echelon, on behalf of AFCEA International. As he said, I'm Steve Vogelsang, the CTO of Nokia Federal Solutions. The complexities of modern warfare demand robust, reliable, and secure communication networks that are increasingly focused on moving data. Nokia Federal Solutions is dedicated to meeting those needs. Building on Nokia's global leadership in technology and innovation, we provide a comprehensive suite of solutions tailored for the U.S. federal government. From 5G private wireless and tactical wireless to secure IP and optical transport networks, our offerings are designed to empower your mission. Nokia Bell Labs, a world-renowned research powerhouse, fuels our commitment to cutting-edge technology. Together, we're driving advancements like massive MIMO, advanced beamforming, dynamic spectrum sharing, battlefield of things, and post-quantum encryption, even pioneering non-terrestrial network solutions. We believe that by working collaboratively with the U.S. Army, we can develop solutions that truly make a difference. I'm honored today to introduce Lieutenant General John B. Morrison, Deputy Chief of Staff, G6, United States Army. In this capacity, he is the Principal Military Advisor to the Chief of Staff of the Army for planning, strategy, and implementation of command, control, communications, computers, cyber, and information technology for worldwide Army operations. Lieutenant General Morrison has a distinguished military career, having previously served as the Chief of Staff of the United States Cyber Command. He has also held various command and staff positions, including Commanding General of the U.S. Army Network Enterprise Technology Command and Commanding General of the 7th Signal Command. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant General John B. Morrison.
Thanks a lot, I appreciate it. I don't know about you guys, this music's killing me. First off, good afternoon. It is an honor to be here As always, I'd like to thank AFCEA for hosting this great conference. 11 years, you said, ma'am? I think I've been here for about 10 of them. So this is absolutely fantastic. Annie and I are absolutely thrilled to be back in Augusta and to see so many old friends. We're going to try and do something a little different. I am not going to talk for very long because the best part of this, I always feel, is having a dialogue go back and forth. But I do want to paint a little bit of a picture. So I want you to imagine something. Imagine a division that does a 475-mile air assault, has a distributed command footprint that covers that entire piece. So just think Fort Campbell all the way down to Fort Polk, Division Main up at Fort Campbell, and they fly all the way down. They do a joint forced entry into Fort Polk, move an entire brigade via air that entire distance. Imagine a brigade command post. It's about 4 vehicles, not the Taj Mahals of years past. Something that can displace and then reestablish communications in a few minutes, not the hours or even days of yesteryear when we were trying to do it. Imagine a brigade commander leveraging commercial capabilities such as 5G, PLEO, to access enterprise cloud capabilities such as 365, or the INSCOM Cloud Initiative for Intel, or even other things that we brought in that allows them to do completely voice over IP on whatever device they happen to be holding in their hand. Imagine this layered, unified network under the overwatch of our cyber being secured so that it works. And then to top it off, imagine a call for fire being processed from a forward observer based off of intel they received through that layered, unified network, and a shot being fired within 3 minutes. A live round being fired within 3 minutes. Actually, rounds up. Imagine that world. That was Saturday at the Joint Readiness Training Center. That was in a contested and congested environment, and it was a part of the unified network. It was a part of C2 fix, and it was a unit in the dirt against a thinking adversary, and it was working. Not only was it working, General Ray and I went over and we talked to the S6 shop. Jeff, what were they doing? They were in, well, they were at Fort Johnson in August. I'm not going to say they were enjoying what they were doing, but the reality of it is you had a bunch of signaleers who were monitoring the network, not fighting the network. And that was Saturday. Now, was it perfect? Absolutely not. There are definitely things that we need to work. Or is it moving in the right direction? Absolutely. So over 4 years ago, 5 TechNets ago, we stood up here and we said, we want to get after this thing of a unified network. And at the time, General Barrett and I were articulating that it wasn't a thing. It would never be a thing. It was a framework that would just get the Army operating in a common direction. And I think you heard from Mr. Garciga this morning that there is this synergy between our cyber, the SIX, the CIO, our great ASALT teammates to drive on a common direction. But what I would tell you is it is ending up as a thing. Not a POR, an operational capability that commanders are fighting. It was interesting to me. I was talking to the Sergeant Major of the 2nd of the 101st Brigade, and he goes, sir, I actually have to think when I come on site to do a site recon. Where are we going to put the antenna fields, and how do we remote them away so we lower our signature? How do we displace our TOC so much to the point that we had trouble finding it, and we were on site with it? That small, that mobile, that agile. But you're listening to how that Sergeant Major was describing the operational capabilities, and it was all effects-based. It was not, hey, this is the network. It was, this is the operational capability I am using to prosecute a fight. And so I get asked sometimes, what is the unified network? Hopefully that was just a little bit of a description of what it is. And the promise of what bringing all three echelons together in a coherent operational architecture, the power that it will bring to our Army as we have to prosecute a fight. Now, we've got a lot of work to do. You heard the CIO this morning talk about what's next. You heard ASALT talking about the initiatives they've got ongoing, and we are going to learn a ton. I would sum it up as this, at least as we really start looking at the unified network. It's all about the concept of ops, the concept of ops, the concept of ops. How are we going to operationalize it so it is just a matter of norm that a 6, when they have a problem, knows who they need to call inside our cyber or netcom to get a problem resolved? We've got to operationalize that and just drive it home and just gain the irreversible momentum, because it's the way the world is heading, it's the way the Army is heading, and it is the only way we're going to be able to operate at speed. We've got to significantly relook our organizations. Inside our cyber and netcom, as we move towards this central delivery of service model, we've got to repurpose combat power. If we can do 90% of our patching from a single location across the broader Army enterprise, why do we need a ton of cyber defenders at the local level? Repurpose them, have them do something crazy, like focus on units and improving the quality of support that we need and owe to our Army. At the division level, it is a division architecture. It is not a bunch of brigade combat team architectures that we kludge together and then call it a division architecture. We have to reorganize our divisional force structure. We've got a signal FDU, force design update, that is out there to reestablish division signal battalions. We are working through that with the Cyber Center of Excellence and the broader Army. But we've got to restructure so we mass combat power and put the expertise where it needs to be. And then last but not least, training, training, training. It goes hand in hand with the ConOps. We've got to continue to refine our training, both inside the institution, and then as you heard Mr. Garcia talk about this morning, for our civilian teammates as well. Because if it's truly a unified network, everybody's got to be trained to the same level. But if you're not excited right now by that anecdote that I gave you to start this, that I would have submitted to you that 2 years ago would have been fantasy on a PowerPoint chart. And then to see it in the dirt against a contesting foe, on Saturday, and it's working, and you have a brigade commander go, his words, not mine, where we just can never go back. That's when you know the network's becoming a weapon system. That's when you know it is something that maneuverists will use to prosecute our fights. That's when you know we truly are the combat enabler that we need to be to support operations for our great Army. So I leave you with those thoughts, a little bit of what we need to work on still, a little bit of where we're at today. I am going to assume a little bit of risk because I realize I've got another 40 minutes of standing here, and I'm hoping that we all just don't look at each other. So with that, I will flip it over to y'all, and I will be glad to answer any questions you've got. And if I can't answer them, there's a whole host of people here in the front row who can answer them for me. Fair enough? Over to y'all.
Thank you, sir. Yes, to remind the audience that the AV crew here will throw the Q&A question email address up on the screen. Please do send in your questions for General Morrison. We have a couple to start.
You know the bad thing of these screens is I just saw myself. My head is shiny as hell.
So, sir, first question.
Jesse, can I have my hat? Over to y'all.
As we unify the network and implement actions like C2 Fix and Next Gen C2 to remove complexity from the tactical edge, enhance mobility, and make the Army more lethal, how do you see the unified NetOps responsibilities changing, and what tools and/or capabilities are you looking for from industry?
And so that is a great question. I'm going to start it off because I think one of the other things that we need to work is culture. You know, so think about how we described this. Overwatch coming from Army Cyber in the Regional Cyber Center. The NetOps components that the division, and then as it translated to the brigade, much more minimized than what it was in the past, because they're not dragging all their own servers with them. They're not doing all their own network management. They're now relying on somebody else that they may or may not even know or see, they definitely won't see them, to provide those capabilities. Culture is one of the things that we are all collectively going to need to drive on, because it's that layering of capabilities and being able to have it be very centralized and effective. I'm not even going to say the word efficient. Very effective, but the ability to also decentralize it. So, first and foremost, we are looking for unified NetOps capabilities that bring a common picture and common capabilities, whether you're at the very, very far tactical edge, all the way back up to the enterprise. We must build from the edge back. And the key to breaking down those cultural barriers is going to be for signal leaders at all echelon, military and/or civilian, and cyber operators, to have that same common visibility. Who's actioning it is all going to be about that ConOps that I was talking about. You know, our cyber has a lot more capacity to do defensive cyber operations than we will ever have in a divisional formation. Won't ever be close. And so we should leverage that layering of capabilities to get after it. The biggest thing that I would tell you that we really need to work on from industry, because I do feel like for the base capabilities that we're layering in across the broader enterprise, we are moving in a good direction. It all comes down to automation. So we can gain speed, we can see ourselves, and quite frankly, we can take some of that analytical load off of what our cyber defenders are trying to do. And so if industry's going to focus anywhere, it's really in two areas. It's the one I just mentioned, helping us automate so we can move at speed and identify problems at speed and then act, and quite frankly, not be completely reactive, start getting into the proactive stance more and more. And then two, it's that integration. You know, we talk a lot about common operating pictures, you know, where a commander is able to see their battle space, see friendly forces, see enemy forces, see what is happening in that battle space. Well, if the network is truly going to be a weapons system, and I believe everybody in this room believes it is, then the folks that operate, maintain, secure, and defend it, and maneuver it, need that same level of visibility. But those would be the two big things that I would focus on. Maria, any thoughts? Okay, it's going to be long.
Thank you, sir. Could you expand on what you mean by reorganizing G6? How will this happen, and is there a timeline?
So we are working through the timeline, and a lot of it, let me put it into two buckets. So at the strategic and operational level, I would submit to you it's ongoing. I'm sure when General Barrett gets up, she'll talk about the Global Cyber Center that is now going to be responsible for really overseeing the global look of a network that is now delivered to theaters, and that central delivery of services model that the Army is rapidly implementing. As that continues to mature, and it'll vary a little bit by capabilities, that reorganization is going to happen over the course of time. You know, I brought up the cybersecurity one. I think that is a near-term target that if we really maximize the capabilities that we have inside the Army tenant, we're going to be able to accelerate that at speed. Others may take a little bit longer. Inside the tactical space, the Signal FDU is up at HQDA. It's in its final staffing. We will be working our way through that over the next 60 to 90 days. And we anticipate getting the decision to move forward with that. I'm going to caveat this as well, but over the course of the next 90 days, certainly before the end of this year. That said, units are not waiting. You're going to start seeing provisional units start standing up through the course of the fall and into next year because commanders see the benefit of these pooled assets from a training and readiness perspective that will allow them to rapidly task organize based off of the division's mission, not trying to figure out what each of the BCTs is doing with an asset and whether or not that fits the divisional scheme of maneuver. And so it's going to be a Texas two-step, and we'll learn a lot as these provisional units start to stand up. But that's really the model that the Army's been taking with Transforming Contact. Get some capabilities out into the field, and the capabilities are not just tech. Matter of fact, I would submit to you that tech is mildly interesting. The Transforming Contact are new organizational designs, new capabilities, new integrated formations. And then we make smart puts and takes as we work our way through it. If you look at the original design of the multi-domain task forces from, Paul Stanton, you in here? When did we do those, 16, 17? End of 16, sir. So at the end of 16, and you look at where they're at today, they are completely different organizations because we have learned, we've adapted, and then we put the requisite capabilities in those formations. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, sir. We know the Army is working hard to achieve the DoD directive to implement Zero Trust. What are your biggest challenges with doing that, and how can industry help?
I'm going to give it twofold. One is internal to the Army, from my perspective, and I'm sure other senior leaders may have an idea too. You know, it's one of those things where we still have institutional challenges collapsing our organizational networks. We have moved a long, long way in that under the fantastic leadership of General Barrett. But we still have resistance. It's one of those things where resistance is futile, so everybody just sort of needs to give up because the Army is heading in that direction because it is absolutely the right thing to do. And you've heard me say it before, there is no zero trust if we've got to do zero trust across multiple networks. There's only zero trust if we're doing it on one network. And so we have to overcome some last stringence of that institutional bias in those holdouts. But I will tell you, I feel very comfortable that we're on the right glide path. From an industry perspective, again, it all goes back to that integration. Helping us integrate capabilities so we're not trying to kludge together a bunch of disparate capabilities and then call it zero trust on the back end. Because if it's not integrated, not just technically, but operationally, then what we're doing is essentially what we're trying to do with C2 Fix, where we don't want people looking at a whole bunch of different screens based off of what function they're trying to control. You know? We want them looking at one common screen that allows them to see exactly what is happening on the network. And again, I will always bang on the automation component of this because the amount of data that is flying through our network is staggering. We, and I'm going to get this wrong, so Denise McPhail, pop it out if I don't get the number right. But as we started looking at data tagging just inside the Army 365 environment, when we were finally postured to do it, we were at upwards of 9 or 10 petabytes of data that we had that was untagged and not the way that we wanted it to be. Did I get that about right? And so, again, automation has got to get us there so that we take some of this load off of the user, right? Because to rely on a user or users in this case, obviously, to do that much data, it's going to be a little tricky. That was an understatement for effect.
Thank you, sir. How do you see the integration of unified network operations within the Zero Trust strategy, down to data tagging of information in a no-trust MO?
So I think I sort of just answered that. If I didn't, then I'll take another swing at it, and you can tell me if I got it right or not. So again, unified NetOps needs to be not the layering of capabilities, it needs to be the integration of capabilities, something that we're working very hard with Mark Kitts and the C3T team, since they're the ones that are going to own all that under the operational requirements that will be established by our cyber. The trick, I think, is going to be, I already talked about the data tagging and that component in the integration, but how do we actually layer it on echelon? Because there is always going to have to be NetOps, and I'm inclusive of security and defense in that, on echelon. The reality of it is that we're going to get into operational environments where in the near fight, I can envision a day of cyber effects being imposed on us by our adversaries. And so that layering is going to be very, very, very important. And figuring that out, and again, we must start with an operational concept first, and then drive that throughout the force is going to be absolutely critical. At the edge, we don't want them worried about data tagging. Again, I take you back to the automation piece of it. It's got to be something that at the edge, it just sort of happens for them and they don't even know that it's ongoing. And it must be very lightweight. Even though I would tell you we are putting unprecedented amounts of bandwidth into our command posts, whether it's a battalion, a brigade, or a division. And I will tell you this story because it's great. I was meeting with a young brigade S6 4 or 5 weeks ago, and he goes, "Hey, sir, I've got a complaint." And okay, Roger, lay it on me. I'm ready. And he goes, "You're throttling my network." And I go, "What do you mean we're throttling your network?" He goes, "Well, I've got legacy crypto, and I'm only able to get 100 megs into the TOC right now." Young major being aggressive, so I smile at him and I go, "Okay, so what did you have like 2 weeks before that?" And he goes, "Well, I had 2. And it was like, "I'll tell you what, come talk to me when you're having trouble getting to 20, and then we'll work our way through it," right? But the reality of it is no matter what bandwidth we throw into the tactical edge, there will be a point in time where, because the environment will be contested, it will be congested, that's going to get driven down. And we still need to account for it, and we shouldn't get false positives, even though it's promising today. The reality of it is our adversaries are smart, and they will adapt as we adapt. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, sir. Sticking with the theme, how do you see Gen AI enabling predictive concept of operations in support of UNO?
I think it's going to be essential over time. We are not there now, though I will tell you, as walking the floor, I've seen some pretty promising capabilities that I think we all need to be on that adventure together. I'm using the term automation, but the reality of it is it's automation that drives you towards that level of artificial intelligence that allows you to get predictive and proactive, vice where we are today, which is far more reactive than we all want to be, or because we don't have the ability to really see all the data the way that we want, we leave something on the cutting room floor. And so it's absolutely where all of us collectively need to head. I will tell you that some of the things that our cyber is doing, from their data standardization, the way we are starting to layer these capabilities in, because we're not waiting for the Unified NetOps program to get up and running completely. Work has already been ongoing, that there's already a level of automation and artificial intelligence that's happened inside our cyber enterprise. Is it where it needs to be? Absolutely not. Where do we need industry's help? We need your help driving us down that road.
Thank you, sir. What's your guidance on the force on both maintaining current legacy systems when being forward-thinking about C2 fix?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer it a little bit differently. So it was very interesting as I was out at the 101st, and it is a struggle inside the division, and the 101st is just a microcosm of this challenge that I'm about to paint to you. We don't have, I would submit to you, any divisions in our Army that are completely interoperable with themselves. You know, the capability set construct was absolutely the right thing to do 12, 13 years ago because we were constantly rotating brigades into theater, and it was the only way that we could really sustain that battle rhythm. But if you look at large-scale ground combat, it's all about divisional and corps maneuver, and all we want our brigade combat teams doing is maneuvering and fighting. We don't want them doing what they did during a coin operation where they were trying to do all this analytics on their own and control their own battle space. Again, moving complexity up to the division level, sort of interesting to me because everybody always starts it with move the tech complexity up. No, it's the tasks of actually prosecuting a fight that need to move up. A brigade combat team in a LSCO fight will not have time to do heavy analytics to try and figure out what the enemy's doing. The division will, the corps will, even higher will, maybe even the theater, but not a brigade. They're moving. And so that's the part that we're going to have to work our way through is what is the fielding construct? Our going in position is we're not going to do brigade fieldings anymore. Reggie Evans, who's over on the corner and who is our new lead over in G357 for all things network and mission command, is working through that fielding plan. And we plan to take it back to Army senior leaders by the end of September for their approval so that we can give direction to C3T of these are the Army's priorities, but they're going to be division level fieldings. I painted a very positive picture of what 2nd of the 101st did. The reality of it is the other portions of the division were living on legacy things and trying to bring and cook those in, and that is friction that we just plain as an Army must take out of the approach. So pure fleeting is going to be key. So as we look at the 101st and we take a look at what capabilities we plan on putting into that formation, smaller, lighter, far more agile, more commercial capabilities such as PLEO and 5G, we are going to rapidly get the legacy capabilities out at the same time. There's no reason if we give a whole bunch of new IP-based radios that are software defined that they maintain any of their legacy radios. They all need to leave. As we replace their legacy WIN-T with the smaller, lighter kit that they are using at JRTC right now, it all needs to leave. We've got to take that burden off of our operational commanders. I hope that answered the question, and if I missed, then just ask again, please.
Thank you, sir. With a unified network, what's your plan to improve response times for trouble tickets when it comes to things like firewall modifications that are controlled at an enterprise level?
Yeah, so that is a great question. And, you know, we had all the signal and cyber CSL leaders in yesterday, and my parting challenge to everybody at the end of it was ConOps. Be very, very comfortable with change because everything I just described to you, if it's the same capability the Army's fielding in 5 years, this entire room, to include me, failed, right? The days of fielding the entire Army A capability are gone. Name an IT anything in the world that tries to do that, right? So be very, very comfortable with change and then be the hog that slaughters ourselves and forces it. So my reason for saying all that is that we've got to get comfortable with this layered ConOps that you're not going to control everything. But I'm not going to sit here and say that there's not things inside our cyber and netcom that need to change. All right? For this JRTC rotation, peas in a pod. The coordination was thick as thieves, and everybody was working their way through it, and everybody knew who to call when there was a problem. Back up a week on the 18th Airborne Corps Warfighter, people fighting with the local Network Enterprise Center, keeping all problems local when, quite frankly, if we had that same operational concept in place, probably would have solved problems a heck of a lot earlier and quicker. And so that ConOps is going to be absolutely essential. And yeah, we're all going to need to change. You know, General Barrett and I were talking about it yesterday. Supporting tactical level operations. But there's only one way to do this if we're going to reduce complexity at the edge. There's not a service provider out there that, you know, centralizes things along the lines of which we're trying to give somebody you pick a version of a phone where it's very simple for them to use, that doesn't have that layered ConOps in place. Very simple analogy, we've got to get there. And this focusing down but in is going to be very important. So we talked a little bit about capabilities in the shifting of them as we move to the central delivery of service model. The Army is not looking for efficiencies when it comes to personnel. We want to redistribute them to get after those core tasks that we probably should have been doing all along. Making sure we've got the right capacity on echelon so that inside the regional cyber center, instead of it being a relatively small tactical shop, focus on tactical units that are in the field environment, it's going to need to be more robust. It's going to take us a little time to get there, but that is the journey that we're on. And so again, it ties all back to the ConOps because that drives our organizational design, that drives the capabilities we put at echelon, and it drives our ability to actually crush cultures that stand in our way.
How is the Army senior leadership thinking about industry as a strategic enabler and partner in an era of strategic conflict and near-peer competition?
That's a great question, and I will tell you, I'll offer a couple different thoughts. So from what this community does, and when I say this community, I'm talking about industry, military, and all of the civilian teammates that are in here, you should be pinching yourself for the Army senior leaders that we have in place right now. You know, General George didn't come talk to me or Mr. Garciga or Mr. Bang when he said, hey, I'm going to start calling the network the #1 modernization priority for the Army. Just started doing it. You know, the unbelievable work that we've done as an Army attacking institutional biases and processes that slowed us down. Well, quite frankly, the Undersecretary of the Army has been a huge driver in that. The reason that we now, as a broader community, can now control requirements, prioritize requirements, and then align resources to them, right? Which is, you know, whoever controls resources controls behavior, controls output. It's because our Undersecretary. And our vice, if he's not the best signaleer in the Army, he's the second best signaleer in the Army. I mean, he is just all in on what it is that we're trying to do. And so I say all that because it is unique how Army senior leaders have aligned to drive this and, quite frankly, to enable us to get a lot of maneuver going. The reason Mr. Garciga can stand up and say he's changing all these policies is because Army senior leaders are helping. The reason Mr. Bang can stand up saying, here's all the different things we're changing from the actual procurement portion of our acquisition piece is because we got Army senior leaders that are it. I would bet that any of those senior leaders that I just mentioned to you, if they were standing here, they would sit there and say this simple thing. We will never be able to develop IT capabilities like industry can. You've got to help us just take that, put the military wrapper around it that we need to, so we can get the power of American ingenuity in our industry in place for our Army and our nation. I truly believe that I'd be pretty close in that, and I defer to my two wingmen. And so that is where we need your help. You know, there is a sense of urgency to get moving. And all you have to do is look at the news. I mean, it is a crazy, wicked, complex world right now. And all of us need to play a key part in making sure that our nation remains strong. That would be my personal ask of all of our teammates in this room.
Thank you, sir. Next question. With the increasing emphasis on joint and coalition operations, how does the Army plan to integrate its cyber capabilities with those of other services and allied nations to ensure a unified defense?
I'm probably going to defer that one to General Barrett tomorrow. But I'll flip it on its head a little bit, and I'll talk about it from a network perspective. At the joint level, so I'll be very candid with everybody, even though I know there are several things that we need to work across the entirety of the .mil PF when it comes to implementing the unified network. I would say that the institutional biases, inertia, and quite frankly, non-functioning institutional challenges that we had have mostly been busted through. Again, I take you back to, you know, between the CIO and myself, we're able to work our way through the prioritization with our cyber as our advisor, the prioritization of operational requirements, the validation of operational requirements, quite frankly, when it comes to the network, then the prioritization, and then the subsequent resourcing. That's pretty powerful. So I would submit to you that we are on a good glide path, and I don't see us going back. I think we are definitely trending in the right direction. We had to fix ourselves first. You know, I'll be plain text. In our joint interactions from a network and all that component of it, mainly with the Air Force and the Navy, were a little informational just to make sure we didn't get too desynced from each other because we all generally had the same end state. Where we've really driven on partnering is with General Skinner in DISA and Joint Force Headquarters Doden, because we both have an envisionment, especially on mission networks, that he's going to provide that joint umbrella that we will then plug into so that it is absolutely seamless across the entirety of the joint force. Our third priority really was our allies and partners. We focused on those partner networks that we knew we had to defend, that were conducting operations, and our cyber's done a great job starting to provide that CSSP, cybersecurity umbrella over those networks. As a Department of Defense, we've got to start making some very, very informed decisions on where we're going to take the mission partner environment. And we can't be everything to everybody. We are going to have to start picking targets and then building it out in a unified fashion based off of zero trust principles, and then figure out who is the right operator for it. Because I would submit to you right now that the department does not have that right. And so we've got to get that part sorted out. Little twist on that. Maria, over to you, the other one, if you'd like to answer it or wait till tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. How is the Army trying to bridge the enterprise capabilities to the tactical edge in the unified network?
Oh, I don't think we're trying. I think we're crushing those boundaries. You know, I wasn't making up what I sat there and said happened on Saturday. And I would tell you that as we integrate more and more commercial capabilities with military capabilities at the tactical edge and just bring that together in a tight wrapper and tie that back into the strategic and operational level, it's only going to accelerate on us. You know, the people using SIPR teams in the woods at JRTC was like, I'm going to use a thing from Mr. Garciga, was a real thing. The brigade commander walking around with a phone connected to a local MiFi puck that was connected to wireless, that was connected to StarShield, and he's doing the same stuff that he was doing in his office the day before was a real thing. The ability to start moving around the world and just plugging your computer in is a real thing. So I don't think we're trying. I think we are blowing through it like it's going out of style. I think one point that we don't talk about enough is this integration of this operational architecture. Now, I'm going to use my terms when I say operational architecture, because I know architecture can become a four-letter word. But when you look at C2 Fix and the work that has been ongoing with C3T, every step of the way, there's been the signaleers and the cyber defenders who are going to have to operate that when there's not a FSR or a C3T teammate in sight. We're in that room doing the puts and takes on what that operational design needed to be, because they were the ones that were going to live with it on the back end. And the teamwork that came from C3T was second to none. That is the same stuff that is happening at the strategic and operational levels with our cyber and NetCom and our supported commands as we build out things like the Army 365 tenant. So bringing a coherent operational architecture, I acknowledge it's technical, together, but driven so that it is threat-informed and integrated soup to nuts, meaning strategic down to tactical, that's the game. And so, again, I don't think we're trying. I think we're way past trying. I think we're starting to blow the door off the hinges. And I only see it accelerating from this point out.
Thank you, sir. We have time for one more question, and we have so many questions from the audience that we're not going to have time to get to. But the final question.
Are you saying that just to be nice to me, or?
Sir, we have a lot of questions. The final question. Congratulations on the recent success of the eICAM launch and the onboarding of those key Army systems. How is the process of integrating tactical ICAM with the broader eICAM system coming along, especially in terms of supporting the Army's Zero Trust initiatives across both enterprise and tactical environments?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I will tell you that we are at the start of the journey. We have now got it to where what we're doing with eICAM is now going to be layered with what we're doing with ICAM at the tactical level. I will tell you that I think all of us are starting to have a growing sense that saying ICAM is almost a misnomer at this point, that we need to start doing ICAM and talking about the capabilities from that perspective. But I take you back to the institutional inertia and the ability to blow through that institutional inertia, because we're starting to establish as an Army those clear roles and responsibilities across the broader HQDA staff and empowering it down to the mission partners below us, such as Army Cyber. If we had left things to their own devices, tactical ICAM was years away from even starting. I mean, years away. I think it was 27. Mark, you can correct me if I was wrong. But because of the ability to sit there and do that level of prioritization, to be able to work with our teammates over in ASALT, we're now able to look at the ICAM in its totality all at the same time. Now, as I get ready to get off the stage here in January, I'm leaving it to this great team to figure the rest of that stuff out. But the reality of it is we now have an opportunity to look at identity, credentialing, access, and management in its totality, because we're able to get the bureaucracy aligned. And so I think we're in a really, really good space. We've got all those capabilities now consolidated inside C3T. Sorry about that, Mark. Because ASALT has done a tremendous job consolidating the delivery of all network capabilities under Mark Kitts and C3T. That is why he will soon have a hairline like mine. But again, it's, lasting change is institutional change is what I would submit to you. And by getting the institution the institutional change that we've long worked. A lot of folks have been banging on this for years. That day's now arriving, and it is going to be absolutely powerful for our Army moving forward. I hope that answered the question.
That was our final question.
Can I say one more thing? Hey, so can I just, yeah, so just the, probably last TechNet standing up here. I just want to leave you guys with two thoughts. If the folks in this room can't get what we just talked about done, you know, and seal the deal and continue to drive this change, I don't know who can. It is absolutely amazing what everybody in this room brings to it, whether you're an industry partner or a soldier, one of our civilians, or a contractor that's in support of our great Army or in the Joint Force. So my hat's off to everybody in this room for everything that you've done that took a simple framework 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, and is now, building off Mr. Garciga's slang, made it a real thing. And it's happened because everybody in here has been rowing. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate everybody's leadership. I really look forward to seeing what this great team of teams accomplishes over the next several years, because, as I said a few minutes ago, I see it doing nothing but accelerating beyond our wildest dreams, and it's because of each and every one of you. Thank you.
Please welcome Eric Gladman back to the stage.
Sir, it's been an absolute honor to have you here this afternoon and to be here all these years, 10 years. So it's a privilege. And on behalf of AFCEA, we'd like to present a special donation to you to the Signal and Cyber Historical Museum. We'll make that on your behalf, and we really appreciate your mentorship and guidance, sir. Thank you very much. We have another acquisitions session coming up momentarily here in about 15 minutes. We also have a lot planned for you this afternoon in our other meeting spaces. So please help us stay on schedule by quickly exiting, and we are going to head into another session here. Otherwise, sit tight as we prepare the stage for the next presentation. Thank you very much.